Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with more Entitled People. If you enjoyed these story compilations, please don't forget to tell me in the comments, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Entitled Guy Tries to Exorcise the Tourette's Out of Me and Won't Take No for an Answer. By the way guys, is it just me or does Ex0rcise almost sound the same as exercise? Or is my accent the issue here? Please let me know. Anyway, so for context, I have Tourette syndrome. My most common at work is a meow-like squeak. Now, something important to know about Tourette's is, if you mimic someone's tick, or you tick yourself or do something tick-like, you can force them to tick and it can get very bad. Tourette's is not all that cute if you actually know about it. Forcing too many ticks can result in ticking so much you stop breathing and pass out. You can get what I call stuck ticks, where you cannot stop doing one tick for an extended period of time, or the worst case scenario triggering a tick attack which can, and for me it does, look like a grand mal seizure that can last up to 4 hours. I live in Ohio, so there are a lot of Christians and most people don't understand my tics, and since I work as a cashier and see hundreds of people a day, I get people offering to pray for me at least once a week. It is not all that unusual. I always say yes and then they go home and I assume add me into their nightly prayers. I don't mind, and if it is what they feel they need to do, who am I to stop them? I try my best to keep my verbal tics to sounds, not words, at work, which is difficult, but I pull it off, and if I cannot, I cover my mouth to muffle some really bad or some just not family friendly things I say. I am also non-confrontational to a fault. People scare me, so I act like a doormat. Okay, down to the story. It started off as a pretty standard interaction. A guy came up to my register and I asked him to put his mask on. He complied and asked what the noise was, so I told him I have Tourette's, and he looked weirdly gleeful and asked if he could pray for me, so I said yes, and this is where it got weird. Apparently his religion is the one where you twitch and shout in tongues because Jesus is possessing you. He started twitching and trying to make me copy him, saying a bunch of weird stuff, like promising my soul in exchange for Jesus to possess me and free me from the demons who were inhabiting my body. At this point I was really uncomfortable, and one of the kids I work with, he's a tall big looking dude, came over and stood there. He did not know what to do, but I appreciate the solidarity and that he was there in case it got worse. The guy kept doing this twitch stomp thing with his whole body that forced me to do it, and that made him really excited, but he wouldn't let me claim I was saying the words in my head because you might really be thinking that you don't accept Jesus and you need to accept him in order for him to possess you and get rid of the demons inside of you. At this point I was having a lot of trouble standing upright and I was scared. I looked around and saw my manager, who is a mama bear, and all the cashiers are her ducklings. I could not catch her eye, so behind my back I started desperately trying to wave her over. She came over, guns a-blazing, seeing what was happening, and told me to go sit down behind the service desk, basically hide, and also that is where I go, where I'm gonna have a tick attack, and I could barely stand because of this dude, and the guy flipped out, getting mad and yelling at her about how she stopped Jesus and how is he supposed to exorcise my demons when she stopped Jesus. You cannot get in the way of Jesus. And she responded by firmly and loudly saying I was gonna have a seizure, simplified version of me having a tick attack, and he was still flipping his crap and tried to insist I check out his items and that you cannot stop Jesus. She pointed to a register far away from mine and told him he could check out there. After checking out, he was shooed out of the store and my tics were bad. He came back a few minutes later saying he was in town for a witch convention and I needed to let him exorcise the demons out of me. I was twitching like crazy and scared of this guy. My 2 managers stood in between me and the guy and told him to leave. He asked if I wanted him to leave and I meekly said, yes please. And eventually he got shooed out of the store and did not come back. But the damage was done. I got my arms stuck in a tick and I could barely use them for 45 minutes, and eventually they switched ticks and I could not use them for another 2 hours. We honestly thought we were gonna have to abandon my car and a co-worker was gonna drive me home. Eventually I figured out how to teach my managers how to do a reset on me, basically forcing me to do tics that are really hardwired into my brain to get me unstuck. And I was able to use my hands again instead of swinging them like a skier. But he gave me a stomping tic, so I had to wait in my car for another 45 minutes before I could drive without stomping the gas pedal. Now I am home, I am exhausted, irritated and in pain because he wanted to exorcise the Tourette's out of me. And you know guys, hearing about these kind of things in the 21st century is already bad enough, but if you think back maybe around 100, 200, 300 years ago, I cannot even imagine how hard life must have been for people with disabilities. I mean really, life nowadays is still hard enough for a lot of people, but back then it must have been a total nightmare. And the next one is titled How I Stole My Coworker's Title Kind of Accidentally. I was near a job site recently that reminded me of this story. Not sure if it is exactly revenge since it was unintentional, but it sure did knock him down a few pegs. I used to work as a carpenter for a decent sized company. We mainly did restoration, but we also did remodels, extensions, upgrades and whatever kind of stuff people would need that did not involve laying building foundation. We would usually take on sizable projects like complete exterior overhauls of apartment complexes that would take over a year to finish, so it was nice and stable work. When a big project came close to finishing, we would be slowly dispersed to other crew doing big projects or break off into little crews that would do a 2 to 4 week job to fill in time before our next big contract. So at the end of my time on my first project with the company, it was only a couple months after I got hired, I was being sent to a different crew. I was excited to meet new people since I got along really well with all the other guys. But then I got to meet Ivan the Russian. The Russian was his nickname since, as you might have guessed, he was Russian. Real creative, I know. He was your stereotypical Russian, from the hair and fashion sense to being a chain-smoking vodka lover. He had a slight accent, so I assumed he came here in his teens and has lived in Canada for quite a while, and I guess he never adapted to the Canadian way of life. I myself am also Russian and moved to Canada when I was still a kid, so I've lived here for the majority of my life. My name is not very typical Russian sounding and I have no accent, so most people assume I'm just a generic multi-generational European immigrant. As far as anyone is concerned, I'm just your average Canadian, and it is for reasons like this that I don't throw out my nationality at everyone I meet. Apart from aesthetics, there are also the personality stereotypes that a lot of people don't know about. The majority of Russians I've met here tend to be stubborn, self-centered, very opinionated and judgmental. And boy, was this guy the whole lot. I would walk away whenever politics came up because I could not stand to listen to him argue with everyone. He would always try to shoehorn his Russian heritage into convos by one-upping people with comparisons to life back home. If he was caught doing something wrong while working, his typical excuse was, "Well, this is how we did it back home, and it worked fine." The guy was a straight-up hack. I hated the weeks I had to work with him, and a lot of the crew was not too fond of him either. But he was a tough worker, even though you had to keep an eye on him to make sure he was keeping up to code, and his interior finishing work was surprisingly good. This was enough for the bosses to keep him around even if he got on everyone's nerves. So after about a month of working on this site, a group of us were standing outside of lockup having a smoke and drinking coffee when I got a call from my mother. She was trying to convince me to join the family for Easter lunch. Easter is a pretty big deal in Russia, at least in my family. Think of it on par with like Thanksgiving. Big gathering of friends and family. I had just recently had a big fight with my father during my sister's birthday. The brief of it was, I am gay, he is an old Russian fogey. Add alcohol and you get a powder keg just waiting for a match. Mom is indifferent, just said that she won't get grandkids, but whatever. Since I knew that the phone call was going to get heated, I moved away from the group as to not bother them. As we expected, we argue and the phone call basically ends with me yelling, "I just want a sincere apology from him to me and my boyfriend, or is that alcoholic waste of space too good to have a gay son?" Basically what my father called me that day. I hang up and storm back to the group, still going through a roller coaster of anger and guilt when it struck me. I usually forget that other Russian speakers exist, and I most definitely forgot about Ivan. My heart stops because I just basically yelled out that I am gay within earshot of him. I know everyone heard the call since they looked worried, but since it was in Russian, I did not really care what they heard since no one could ever really understand. Except today. I tried to keep my personal life as personal as possible. I definitely did not plan on sharing that part of my life with my coworkers today, especially not to the Putin preaching Ivan. Or Ivan, I'm not sure. I stare at Ivan and sternly ask him as my mind races, me, did you hear everything? Ivan, me, were you listening in on my phone call? Ivan, silence. Wait, do you understand what I'm saying? I thought at first he was just frightened because I was a bit angry, still from the phone call, but he had more of a confused face than a scared one. It kind of dawned on me that he didn't actually understand what I was saying. The other guys standing to the side are all pretty spooked at this point since all they saw was me yelling on the phone in Russian and then storming over to Ivan and start kind of yelling at him in Russian. As I let out a sigh of relief, I just say, "Oh, thank God you're not actually Russian." I was not really paying attention to what I said, I was emotional and the words just kind of fell out of my mouth. My coworkers almost gasp and start freaking out. Wait, Ivan, you're not actually Russian? His face went bright red and he just rushed off. My coworkers were confused and were asking me how I knew, and I told them I straight up asked him if he could understand what I was saying and he did not respond. The news spread pretty quickly around the site and the other crews at different sites. There was only about 30 to 40 workers in our company, not including subs. He had only worked with the company for about 6 or so months, and after jumping around different sites before settling down with this crew, he had already built up a reputation as Ivan the Russian. Ivan went home right after that interaction and called in sick the following Friday. When he came in on Monday, he basically just stared at the ground and would not look anyone in the eye. His accent disappeared and he was teased relentlessly for faking being Russian. To his defense, he played the part pretty well. Most of the stuff he said was pretty accurate, and as it turned out, he was actually Russian with a Russian name. Albeit a third-generation immigrant and had just moved from the East Coast last summer, so no one really knew him when he was hired. He held up the act for about a half a year with no one catching him in the act. Looking back, there were a few red flags. I was avoiding him for the most part since I knew that if he found out I was Russian, he would not leave me alone, but my name should have been a pretty big giveaway and he never caught on. He quickly lost his title and it was more of a teasing jab at his expense, and I was given the title of the actual Russian. After I left that crew to go start on the next big project, I heard that he had the sense knocked into him and was a bit more bearable since people would call him out and shoot him down whenever he tried to bullcrap about stuff. He still was a hack carpenter and I did not see him at the summer barbecue that year. Apparently he quit a couple months after I left that crew. Kind of wonder if he's gonna try that again with a different company. And guys, if you have watched until here, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and post some star emojis in the comments if you like to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance, your help is very much appreciated. And the last one is titled, "Coworker thinks she is owed the world because of her illnesses." So I have a coworker, let's call her Sally. She has worked with us, very small tech company, for about a year and a half now. We hired her mainly to deal with low-key tech problems and answer the phones, but trained her to deal with more advanced issues as time went along. Sally, however, has not progressed in her job skills and can barely handle the most basic tenets of her job. But that's not important. No, we are here because Sally's sense of entitlement, unlike her job skills, is out of this world. Sally has a lot going on both physically and mentally. She is a big fan of self-diagnosing and has asserted to both coworkers and customers alike that she has determined that she suffers from the following mental illnesses: bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, generalized anxiety, depression, anorexia, insomnia, ADHD, PTSD, autism spectrum disorder, seasonal affective disorder, and dissociative identity disorder. She also has asthma, an unknown immune disorder, is pre-diabetic, prone to aneurysms, etc. Now, given that Sally has so many ailments, I'm not ruling out she may well suffer from some, but not one has been diagnosed by a professional. She naturally needs a lot of special treatment. She is married to a heterosexual man whom she claims is the straightest guy on the planet. According to her, she was once trans but moved on because it was actually just a phase. We got to learn all of this on her second day of work. It was riveting. Sometimes she just cannot work because a customer or problem upsets her too much and she needs to take a full 30-minute to 1-hour break to collect herself and talk to her friends on the phone. Not about her mental health, you see, but just calling to catch up and talk about TV or something. You might think that she would take a shortened lunch on these occasions, but you would be wrong because Sally is entitled to a full hour of lunch. Sometimes she just has crap to do and spends hours on the phone with debt collectors, her husband, hairstylist or makeup artists while she is supposed to be working. Again, if you thought she would wait until her OSHA mandated break or lunch to do these things, you would be wrong. But fret not, Sally is not so inconsiderate as to always have these conversations in our small office space. Luckily, she has her very own break room in which to take her therapy calls and personal calls. It is specifically reserved for her because she is quite loud. So loud that she can be heard clearly from behind the closed door of her break room. It is alright because none of the rest of us need to focus on work, not when Sally is having a political crisis and needs to call her husband to discuss the candidates and their views in detail at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday in June. Sally is sickly and frail and frequently does not feel well. Not to worry, our break room can easily be converted into her bedroom so she can nap for hours on the couch. During this time, it would be rude of us to wake her up because she is entitled to the entirety of the only break room, obviously. That is why she makes sure to close all the doors, turn out the lights and bring her own pillow and blanket. On at least 2 occasions, she has been much too fragile to walk the literal 15 feet to the bathroom and has just vomited into her trash can. It's a small office, but good thing Sally's vomit does not stink. Never mind, it does, and the office had to be aired out as a result. Turns out vomit sitting in a trash can for hours while the heat is going does not make a great combo. Who would have thought? She left early that day because she just could not stand the smell. I don't blame her, neither could we. At least for all of her faults, Sally is a good communicator. She makes sure to let all of us in the office and everyone on the phone know how she is doing in great detail. Customers are thrilled to know how she cannot focus on their issue because she stayed up all night playing video games, or how about she cannot type because she got a shot and her arm is in a sling. Yep, that's right. Poor Sally is so brittle that she needed a sling for a full 2 days after a shot. All of us were really inspired by her journey to discover the right birth control, including the customers who overheard her. You can imagine how Sally has fared during this pandemic. She has had the virus no fewer than 3 times, but never received a positive test result or came back with any antibodies, which is because her immune system is so weak it does not make virus antibodies. During these bouts with the virus, each lasting 1 to 3 days, Sally could not take any calls and had to hand off 70% of her work because she was too sick to handle it. That is okay, she kept all of our spirits up by playing video games on her phone. As you can tell, our boss is not really in the office all that often. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.